Dan, welcome. Another podcast. We're able to connect for two in a row. We got a streak going.
Heck yeah, a little slow period here. I'm getting ready to go deer hunting in South Dakota, but yeah, what a great episode. This was a fun one.
God, man, it's so fun. So we did a question and answer, put it out on social media, and just able to go through all this different subject matter and dive into each of the questions. I'm able to hear your take on it, my take. For the most part, we agree on a lot of stuff, like the majority of our podcast, but there were a few questions where we disagreed with our answers a little bit, which always makes for a good conversation.
Oh yeah, that's why there's two of us, a couple different points of view, and I feel like the winners are the listeners. You're going to get a couple perspectives, and we're both maybe right or maybe not. Who knows? We'll let the listeners decide.
Yeah, 100%, man. Well, yeah, awesome episode. Good job gathering those questions and putting the video out. I really think that we should do this more often. I think this is a gold episode. So if you like this episode, go on, leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, something like that. That really helps out. Or just a rating. Like a 5-star rating takes 2 seconds to click on that and really helps us grow this podcast and be able to bring this content to you. And right now we're every couple weeks, which is great. But yeah, if we can pick up steam, who knows? No limit to the future. So yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Absolutely. Shoot us some feedback, even if you just DM us too, if you like this episode coming up. We did get to talk about some stuff. I hate to say it, but it's like intimate parts of bow hunting, like what's inside of our brains and why we do it. And we answered too, like at what point are we going to say we've seen enough bull elk die and we hang it up, we're done forever. We even talked about that. So we got in deep a little bit too real quick beforehand, but it's quality stuff.
Yeah, that was the start of the podcast. Yeah, good conversation. Yeah, for sure. So we just want to thank our sponsor for today's show that's been great to us, the Juniper Mountain Coffee. In fact, I've got some right here that I'm drinking. Those guys just have awesome roasts, awesome company and people. I had them on the podcast, which I was really stoked to have a conversation with. So yeah, thanks to those guys for sponsoring the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Yep, great coffee from those guys too. And I want to give a shout out to Dale there at Evolution Broadheads. I'm taking those new whitetail Furies to South Dakota to hopefully run one through a big old whitetail buck. Big cutting diameter, lots of power in this new Matthews bow. So I'm looking forward to putting that combo together and see if I can't wreck a whitetail and watch them die in eyesight, get a good, quick, clean kill. That's what it's all about. So shout out to Evolution Broadheads as well.
Yeah, those Dale and those broadheads, like we had them on the podcast here, and then I talked about how I was going to use that hybrid this season for elk, which I hadn't done, and I will say that it wrecked that bull that I shot. There was blood everywhere, and he didn't make it but about 60 yards and died. And I've also shot all my critters with him this season, so deer, antelope, axis deer, like I've ran this thing through the ringer and I'm so impressed, and I've converted so many of my buddies to this broadhead. It just does such damage. So yeah, that's the Evolution hide. Great broadhead, thanks to Dale for sure. I got to hit him up and get some more of those things coming.
Yep, same here. Other things, mule deer course, it's still out there. We were running low on MagView and our game bags. We have Beyond the Grid coming out here soon, some deer hunts coming out. Make sure you listen to all our podcasts, Eastman's Hunting Journals podcast, Eastman's Elevated, of course. And Luke was telling us that they have some swag on the website, some new shirts that they just released, that the folks here in marketing at Eastman's released. And the first 100 people that go on to eastmans.com and buy some T-shirts are going to get the Outdoor Edge knife, rather, for free. So go order some T-shirts and get a free knife. That's a pretty sweet little thing they have going on here in the office. So good stuff.
Sick T-shirts and hats, man. Everybody outdid themselves this year. I'm so impressed. I got a stack of the shirts as well, as I've been wearing them around here. I really like the colors and the designs, and yeah, they've outdone themselves. It's just so proud to be part of the brand and what they're producing. But yeah, go check out their shirts. They're amazing.
Yeah, great feel, great fit. It's like they're really comfortable. They're not just a t-shirt that doesn't fit you. They're like they fit you right, and the size is spot on. So yeah, check them out. Good mule deer and elk shirts. They're on Eastmans.com.
Yep. Absolutely, Dan. Well, let's get into this question and answer. We went a little bit long today, but I think it's a really easy listen the way we work through these questions. So, yeah, man, let's get this podcast started.
Heck yeah, let's do it. Good.
Yeah, thanks for making it work this morning. I know you were out whitetail hunting early this morning.
Yeah, taking Blake out. We had a lot of fun. We saw a little bit of everything: otters and coyotes chasing deer and small mule deer bucks. It's funny with Blake. He's killed 3 deer in his life, and he's like, oh, I'm holding out for a big one. Yeah, I'm not gonna shoot just anything. I was like, okay.
My daughter said the same thing. It's like I think she's got 4 deer to her credit, or maybe 5 now, and gosh, she held to it. Me as a kid, I would have shot the first 2-point that gave me a chance, but she's like, oh, I want a 3 or a 4. And I'm like, oh, there's a 2-point bedded. He's a pretty nice 2-point if you want to shoot. She's like, no, I'm holding out. I'm like, gosh, you're crazy. I would have emptied my whole gun at that thing.
That's what I told Blake as a kid. I shot so many like forkies with eye guards, like whitetails up in Northwest Montana, but just young bucks, but just getting experience. And, if we saw a deer, it was kind of a big deal. You shot it. If it was brown, it's down. But he's like, I need something bigger than my buck from last year. So, okay.
I still I love to bow hunt, and so not that I'm shooting every 2-point that I see, but I have this line where if I see like a good, heavy, mature 4-point, it is tough to hold me off. I mean, maybe in a better unit or when I've seen a giant buck, but I hit that line of mature deer that's 4, 5, 6 years old. And same thing with the bull. Like I have no more interest in killing a 5-point bull. And that's just me personally, but if he's a 6-point, and not any 6-point, but he hits that line of that, 300 to 320, somewhere in there. Gosh, I just can hardly help myself. I want to make good on the we just don't get that many opportunities, but man, I have a tough time holding off too when I find a mature animal.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, is that mature animal. And I'm the same way. I mean, everybody is probably in a different phase of their hunting career and their standards and what they're going to shoot. And my mentality is, it's like, the little bucks and maybe the does, depends on where you're at, save those for the kids. I'm not even going to consider shooting a little deer.
Me too.
If he's mature, big old swelled up, big neck, waddling around, it's like, that's what gets me excited, whether it's a bull or a buck. And, that's what I strive for. It doesn't always happen, but like you said too, I mean, it all depends on the hunt general, or is it limited? What are your expectations? What does that unit have to offer for trophy quality? So there's all these factors that definitely, play into it. But it's everybody's kind of in a different place in their hunting career. The one thing I don't buy is like, oh, I'm going to shoot that 2-point for meat. And it's like, these guys around here shooting these young bucks, and this is just my opinion. If you're hunting meat, go get a cow elk tag and shoot some meat. Leave the poor little deer alone. But for the kids and the women, shoot some little deer too. That's fine, or whatever. But anyway.
Yeah, or a new hunter, or I mean, like, we all have to self-police ourselves, know, and a lot of these 2-points are future bucks. And if if you're just shooting for the meat, then there's plenty of whitetail doe tags and other things to go for, and everybody has to make their own decision, and it's not my job to judge anybody else. But we do see, like in my area, they give 17,000 non-resident tags, and a lot of these guys have elk and deer combo tags. And so when they come elk hunting in my valley, they just want to shoot something. And so, they also have a deer tag in their pocket, and they end up killing a lot of our up and comers. Or 2-points in our area just can't sustain this amount of harvest. And that is the rules, and it is legal for guys to take a 2-point. And I'm not against it for kids, for women, for a guy that maybe hasn't shot a deer and it's his first deer. It's like, good on you, go for it. But a lot of these guys that are proficient at hunting with their rifles and just want to kill something and kill all our 2-points, it doesn't leave any bucks left to mature up. And so, like, I think there has to be a little bit of that self-policing, but I try not to come down too hard on guys and their decision, whatever they decide to shoot. And for me too, like, I love to hunt. So for me, my line is a 320 bull. That's what gets me excited. And I just want to walk up and be happy with my harvest. And so, for me, it's 150, 160-inch mule deer. I hunt a lot of those prairie mule deer, but a lot of those are 5, 6-year-old bucks that are really tough to arrow, and same thing with the 320 bull. But I've set my sights for a 350 bull before and said, okay, I'm shooting nothing but a 350. And I'll go throughout my season and I don't spend any of my time chasing or hunting elk or chasing bugles. And it gets to be a bit of lackluster for me. And as much as I want these giant bulls, if I set my sights too high, well, then I don't get any of the close encounters or the rutting action or the chase that I really love to chase. So you're right. Like, your opportunities have to match like your target goals, or otherwise, like, hunting stops kind of being fun for me, so like I think
Yeah.
everybody has to make their own decisions.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, it's the progression of the bow hunter, but if a situation gets me excited, that's what it's about to me. And now it's like, the antler size doesn't really matter, but if it's the right situation or it's a setting that I'm hunting in and the terrain, and it's like, if it just really resonates with me, I might shoot a smaller animal than I normally would just any place else.
Mhm.
It's about the experience.
It
Uh,
really is.
the killing, I don't like killing animals. I
Mhm.
don't. If you actually like killing animals or seeing elk die or deer die, that's, I don't know what to say to you. To me, I don't like it, but I know that it's a part of the bigger picture, and a small part of really a beautiful thing, a renewable resource, providing meat for your family, challenging yourself, growing as a person. There's so many of these amazing aspects of hunting, and the kill is a small part of it. And that's why we strive to kill as cleanly as we possibly can. It's very important. My buddy this year is kind of a rabbit trail, but my buddy this year, he didn't hit his bull great, and it really bugged him. He hit it low and hit it right below the brisket, and broke its leg, and so we had to get back on it and get it killed. And he had a big problem with it, and I was like, you know what, Doug? I mean, at least it bugs you, because people that it doesn't bug, not making a clean kill, there's something wrong with you, you know? And, we got back on that bull and we got him harvested quick. And, I congratulated him, and it still made it a little bit, lackluster for him, but it's a part of it. But that's what we strive for. And that's why we appreciate those clean kills so much, because when it's a quick, clean kill, it's a beautiful thing. Because if you think about how this bull could die and all these other ways that brutal mother nature has in store for this buck or bull, we're doing them a favor. This is a clean, uh, honorable kill. And for a giant bull, like he harvested a 350 bull that was 52 wide, that's as honorable of a harvest that giant is going to encounter in his life. And we did him a favor, and in the big picture, it's a beautiful thing when it's done right. So
It's really well said, Dan. I thought I was getting soft in my old age.
yeah.
I have these conflicting emotions when I harvest an animal or when I'm with a buddy and they harvest an animal. And you're right, a clean kill really makes me feel a lot better about it. But I still have these conflicting emotions. So I just think that's really well said. And you want to be happy with your harvest, and you want it to sustain, like really enjoy the meat throughout the year. And so, like, I think that is like such a huge part of it, and yeah, it's and it doesn't always happen the way you want it either. It's like sometimes it just happens like where you get a shot. It's like that last buck I harvested. I made a great shot on that thing. And but I hit him a little bit low, little bit back, and the angle of the arrow went down and through, and I saw blood pumping out the other side. It was a brisk, like a shot, but I think I was under the lungs and behind the heart, and there's this shot low and back on that liver that takes him a while to die. And, you know, it bugged me as well. Like I thought he was going to be dead right over the hill, but I had to get on his blood trail and then I had to track him down. I jumped him out of his bed 3 times. And then you struggle with this decision. Do I leave him and come back, or do I have to get another arrow in him? And his offside shoulder was busted. And so, you know, I wasn't sure where the entrance was, and he was pumping blood good and he was definitely hurt, but I had to go finish him off. And, you know, it taints the experience a little bit. But on the other hand of things, I was proud at how hard I followed him up and getting another arrow in him. And I also have to accept that, you know, it's not a perfect science, that sometimes stuff happens and then you have the responsibility to finish the job that you started. And that's what I did. But yeah, I'm with you, man. It's like, it's such a weird conflicting emotions. And I swear in my older age, I'm getting softer on things, you know, and, yeah, it is just all part of it.
Yep, it is. It's a part of a beautiful picture of, you know, the experience and just what it is. I was telling my camera guy Brett, which you got to hunt with him a little bit this fall too, but I was like, I wonder when I'm going to come to the point where I just say, you know, I've seen enough bull elk die and I'm done. And you know, I think about that for a day or two, and it's like, you know, I'll probably never get there because once again, there's so much more to it than just killing something. But you know, you develop a reverence for these animals and harvesting them, and you see these old bulls, and you think about too. You know, you spend all season hunting some of these bulls, and then you go back in during rifle season. You take guys or hunting with buddies, and you're just, you know, it seems like you're just blowing these things down. It's not a challenge at all, and you're like, man, you hate to see them just all being blown down with the rifle when, you know, it's a true chase. It's a true cat and mouse game with a bow and arrow. And you know, that everybody's a little bit different on why they do it. But once again, I think that's why, you know, for us especially, like I can't imagine me killing a bull elk with a rifle. I've never done it and I can't imagine doing it. But I've been on a ton of hunts, like over 40 successful bull elk hunts with a rifle, like filming or guiding back in the day. And so I still enjoy it a lot, but that's when it's more about the hunter. It's about sharing the passion with them. Once again, part of the big picture. And so we have our little niche that we each fit in, and how we want to do it, and how we envision each hunt, and how we envision it going down. And that's the beauty of bow hunting, is because you can make it exactly to what you need it to be for yourself to feel fulfilled, and for you to get the most enjoyment, and for you to grow as a person. That's the beauty of it right there.
Yeah, you're on one today, Dan. Yeah, you're spot on, man. It's like I feel a little bit guilty when I go with other hunters using a rifle because of how I've developed my skill set. And I have these, you know, these feelings, and I want my dad to be successful or my uncle to be successful when I take them out. But it's almost a bit of cheating with me when we have that range, or my daughter, you know. But you know, everybody's in a different stage, and there are their own set of challenges that come with a rifle and rifle season and getting an opportunity. But I'm so with you, man, where it's like, I feel like it's absolute fair chase out there with my bow and arrow, that it's so difficult and such the ultimate challenge that I feel like, you know, those elk or those mule deer, whatever it is, they have just as good a chance or a better chance of avoiding me and not getting shot by my arrow than me actually arrowing them. And I feel like it's like more of an even playing field, where if I am successful, it's like, okay, I outsmarted, I outwitted, I was like a really good predator or a really good hunter in this scenario, the way I played the game. And I feel good about my harvest, you know, that animal had just as good a chance to get away from me as he did me harvesting him. And so, yeah, that's why I love it with a bow and arrow, and why I'm the same way, why I'm bow only all the time, where up and I end up arrowing a really nice bucker bull that I'm proud and happy with. Like, I know I did it on my terms, and I know like I overcame like this ultimate challenge of trying to get close to these animals with these keen instincts. So I'm with you, man. That's like what I live for and why I truly enjoy it. And if I was still hunting with the rifle, like, you know, I might have seen enough bull elk die by now, or, you know, it's just like, I don't know. And we each have to make our own decisions. And there's nothing against rifle season or hunting in these seasons or taking advantage of all the seasons or going for a really big bull with your rifle, because there are their own set of challenges. It's just for me and you, I think we're on the same page, Dan, where we really like the challenge. And I like playing on this even ground with these animals where I really feel like, sometimes it feels like Mission Impossible, but yeah, man, that's like where it's at. But we got to get into these questions today, Dan. Yeah. So we got we're just going to end up podcasting the whole time, but we put this out on social media. We wanted to do a question and answer podcast, which I'm really excited about, as we got a bunch of good questions on Eastman's Hunting Journal, the main page, and then both mine and your personal pages as well.
Yeah, just really appreciative to all the guys that submitted questions. Probably won't get to all of them today, but yeah, some great stuff to talk about. Some funny ones too, but really looking forward to it.
Yeah. So let's start us off. So I think I got that page that you did. So this is off the main Eastman's page. And I think we'll just start at the top and work our way down, try to answer them as good as we can, and then move on to the next one. So the first question comes from MDS 599. Best arrow choice for shorter draw guys, 27 inches. So this is a perfect question for me. I'm a 26.5-inch draw length. I think the most important part of this is getting the correct spine that matches up to your bow, more so than the arrow manufacturer or brand. I think there's a lot of good arrows out there. And I look at front end components, back end components. I look for straightness tolerance, weight tolerance when I'm looking at arrows. But really, a lot of these shafts and a lot of these manufacturers are building really good arrows. What do you have to say for that, Dan?
Yeah, there's about 3 places in the world that build carbon arrows. They're all very similar. A couple are different. Some of the carbon weaves, Aerotech has some. Carbon Express has a couple. But yeah, it all, for me, whether you're 29 or 27, it depends on what you want your final arrow weight to be. That's kind of what I would factor in first. Brand doesn't necessarily matter as much. A little tip, we probably talked about this before, but Dale Perry, he's Evolution Broadheads. He used to do a lot of research and travel overseas and visit these arrow manufacturers in China. And he said, all arrows are the same, and they all come off the same machine, and run out determines whether they're 1,000 straightness or 6,000 straightness. And the 6,000 straightness, they just have a little bit more run out that's not as straight. And so what you do is you buy the economy arrows. This is his little tip. You buy these 6,000 straightness arrows, and you cut your length off the back end of the arrow, and you're going to get rid of most of that crooked factor, for the lack of better terms. And so there's really no reason to ever buy the elite 1,000 straightness arrows when you can just buy the 6,000s and cut your chunk off the back end of the arrow, and that'll give you a very, very straight arrow. So straightness is 100% up there, and your overall weight, I would say, is what I would factor in first. Brand wise, I'm not stuck on one brand. I actually, what I stick on is I look at components more. Do I like that style of insert, outsert, oversert, whatever it is, the best? And heck, the arrows that we were using, this Method Archery, I don't think they're with us anymore, but they had some great overserts. I like one-piece overserts. I like the micro diameter arrows. They got the thick carbon wall. They're very tough. Oversert, goes over the carbon as a cap, and it just makes it's just not going to fail. I've never had that oversert design on a carbon arrow fail. Have you, Brian? Have you ever seen any failure on those?
That's exactly right. Is that insert, outsert, and then a ballistic collar that caps the end of the arrow shaft, and the end of the arrow shaft doesn't explode at the end when you hit something hard. So yeah, you're spot on. And like what Dale was saying too, I think cutting off the back of the arrow, I've actually heard that you cut off the back and the front, and you keep the middle section is the straightest section of that arrow. And so yeah, we did have Method Archery. This is something I feel bad about, as we had them for a sponsor on the podcast, and we really really try to suss out all these sponsors to make sure they're quality arrows, make sure it's a quality company, which we did. And me and you both liked those arrows. The problem is they went bankrupt and went out of business. So that's what I feel bad about, is guys are stuck that had purchased these arrows and then can't get, another dozen of them that they went out. And I'm in the same boat as well, where I can't get any more of these arrows. Here's like an insider tip or something that I'm doing. And I'm not sure, we don't have an arrow sponsor through the podcast, through Beyond the Grid or anything. And these arrows, like, I feel your guys' pain. They're $200, $300 a dozen sometimes. What I'm doing now is I am ordering shafts straight from China at $26 a dozen and building my own arrows. So I got this tip from my Hawaii guys who shoot so many arrows that they were just getting tired of spending all this money, where they were able to suss out these shafts and get them from China for they're still 0.001 straightness. You got to really look at the components. It takes this research of working through this company. I think I'm going through Alabama. It's a different site, but I just ordered. I've got 15 dozen shipping to my house for me and my buddies, and for about $300 to my door. So it could like blow up in my face, and they're not going to be quality. But the good thing is like some of my buddies have sussed out these arrows, so it's like a tip for you. It takes a little bit more research or diving into, but I am able to find them cheaper. And I'm not sure, arrow manufacturers probably aren't going to be happy with me, but I go through 4 dozen arrows a year at least. It's like I can't go spend $1,000 on arrows, So I don't know, something I'm working through. Anyways, I'll let you know how it works out, Dan. They haven't showed up yet.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's a great tip. I'm gonna have to get on that train too. That's freaking awesome. Go directly to the producer, the manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yep.
So another thing that you can do too, and I don't know what you got for components, but there's a couple companies that make like fantastic inserts and components, which I know Method sourced from. One of them is Ethics Archery, and they have a ton of components, different sizes, different specs, and I think they have something for about every arrow shaft out there. So that's a good tip. So are you getting components from these companies too, or are you just getting carbon from China?
So I'm the components are coming as well. So
Okay.
the guys have sussed out the components, and so I was able to look at the components and get those coming as well. I actually got different components for these arrows than they come with, as the guys gave me a tip about it. But you're right. Like, I know I love Gold Tips components, and you can just order their components straight from them, or like that company you're talking about. So I'm going to work through this a bit and just see if I can come up with some more inexpensive arrows. And it may be a learning curve where you don't get what you want, or, something shows up. Like it is a pretty big commitment to get these things. The only, like saving grace I have is my buddies have been ordering and getting test samples of these arrows, and been, I've looked at them in person the last time I was over there. And so like I've kind of been able to suss them out that way, and then they're able to give me all the information and their contacts there. And so, like I've got a pretty good chance that they're going to show up and be what I'm looking to shoot. So anyways, I'm really excited about it.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. What a great tip.
All right, on to the next one, huh?
All right.
I'll read it and then you can answer first here. So this comes from Captain _ Miles Robertson. Logistics getting out of state hunt in regards to flying and camping.
Oh yeah, that's an easy one. We do this quite a bit. We travel, whether we go overseas or Hawaii. For me, I just buy the cheapest coolers I can when I'm there, freeze my meat if possible, and then 50 pounds of meat in each cooler, tape it up, check it as a second, third, fourth checked bag. That's the easiest way to get it home. I've carried on meat before too on the airplane with like a cooler bag. Is very effective if I don't have a ton of meat with me. I've done it with antlers too. A lot of guys aren't sure how they're going to get their antlers home, whether it's elk, mule deer, axis deer. I go to Walmart, I get all the bubble wrap and packing tape, and I just make a monstrosity. I put maybe some hose over the tips of the antlers on the points, and then just wrap them up and just make basically a bubble ball of my antlers. And then that's a checked bag too. So, I mean, you'd be surprised what you can check on airlines as far as checked bags and what you can bring home. When I flew to New Zealand in Australia, and I hunted over there. I didn't I didn't attempt to bring any meat home because I heard that you couldn't get it through customs, but I found out later that it's actually you can.
Mhm.
And like when I flew home, and I want to hear your experience with this too, Brian, coming home from Australia. When I flew home, I had like red deer antlers and some hides and stuff. And you declare it in customs, and they're like, "What's deer parts?" I think I wrote down deer parts, and I was like, I got some antlers and hides." And they're like, the drug dogs sniffed me and they sent me on their way. They didn't even really question me or look at what my deer parts were. But what was your experience? Did you try to bring meat home when you came home?
Yeah, I brought meat, antlers, skulls. Yeah, I brought that home from New Zealand and Australia. And yeah, I run pretty much the same system as you, only I run the soft side coolers, and I can really get about 60, 70 pounds of meat. I do like to just check them so I don't have to carry them through the airports and put them in the overhead bins. But sometimes I carry it on. It just depends how my luggage is. But it's nice to have that meat processed, vacuum sealed, and frozen. And if you don't have access to a vacuum sealer, then Ziploc, double Ziploc, and then freeze it. I think the important part is to freeze it. And a lot of these, like restaurants or hotels, a lot of times they have a cooler you can, or a freezer that you can use if you don't have a buddy there. But yeah, I usually freeze it, bring it home. Skulls have to be cleaned, and so you have to boil them out. So I hope the New Zealand vacation rental house that we got isn't listening, but we actually boiled skulls on the stove and then cleaned them up and then wrapped them up and froze them. It's wrap them up with clear plastic with bubble wrap. I brought antlers home as a separate check bag, and another check bag is $50 or something like that. But yeah, you are able to bring the majority of it home when you travel, and it just takes a little getting used to. And definitely international travel is like a few more steps or check-ins, but most people are absolutely fine. Like I haven't had a problem yet. So
Yeah, me neither. With hides too, I've done hides. If you guys like to bring hides home, I brought home a ton of axis deer hides. Downside is with those, you could either freeze them, but you're wasting precious cooler space if you just freeze your hide, and it's like 20 pounds that it could be meat, but instead it's a hide. So what I like to do is I flush them, salt them. You got to have a few days in those humid climates. It does take a while for that salt to pull that moisture out of the hide and like fully dry out. And you got to have it on a slope. It helps if you put it in the sun, of all things. You don't want it to bake out there, but to get that hide dried with salt, and then roll it up, fold it up, and put it in your luggage in a plastic garbage bag is fine too. It doesn't stink and it dries out. And that's a good way to bring a hide home. You can do that anywhere in the world and bring home a hide, and it won't go bad on you. So if there's a
yep.
will, there's a way, I feel like.
Yep. Well, Australia is weird because they can't bring meat into Australia, but we can bring it out of Australia to the U.S. So it's a bit like they can't bring theirs home, but we can always bring ours home to the U.S. But yeah, no, that's a good question, and it's just a matter of working your way through it, and you can definitely get it home. So I got another one here. This is from J_click _big _velvet. Who's staying on top of the mountain with deep snow the longest? Big old muley or a big bull?
Yeah, ultimately, longevity wise, it's those big bulls. They can tolerate snow the longest. They Snow just doesn't really bug a big bull elk, and a mule deer can hold out for a little bit, but they will eventually come down at least a little bit where they can function in manageable snow depths. But like elk, they can be in belly deep snow and live up on those windblown slopes and find areas that they can get out of that deep stuff and stay up on the very top of that mountain all winter long. What's your experience, Brian?
Yeah, I'm a bit opposite. I struggle with this question, but I do see big muley bucks that winter up in higher conditions than the bulls a lot of times. But I am with you that those bulls just survive better in that deep snow. And I have to say, I am so impressed. I think these animals are evolving like as we're getting more effective. And so I live in a really high population elk area. Our populations are doing really good, and I just haven't seen the dead bulls this year going through town in people's trucks. And we did get a couple weeks of snow and cold, but it just wasn't enough to push those bulls out. So all these bulls are back on public ground right now, and they're just hiding from all these general season rifle guys, and they're not getting a lot of them. And I think these animals are are getting more evolved to avoid the hunting pressure, to know when the hunting seasons are. And so I have to say I'm really impressed by our bull populations right now, as they are hanging up high in the mountains where guys can't get to them.
Yep, for sure. And ultimately, especially in the winter, you know, it comes down to feed. I mean, how good of browse is it up there? I mean, does a deer have enough groceries up high to make a living, a big buck? And same goes with a bull. You know, elk are grazers, mule deer are browsers. And so if those bulls do have those windblown slopes, they'll stay up there and you know, go through a tough winter and just deal with the elements, and a buck will too. And it depends on hunting pressure and where you're at, and it's all probably regional as well, just depending on the habitat. So yeah, that's kind of it's hard to answer that question really.
Yeah, it is. And well, and probably different area specific. I do see some of those bucks that can weather up high, but then sometimes they get trapped up there, and the mule deer
Yeah.
are more susceptible to winters, and they don't winter as good as an elk. And maybe it's because they rut closer to the winter and burn off their fat stores. But you do see more of winter die off with mule deer than you do with elk. So that's, to your point, Dan, that you're making, that elk will winter higher than a buck. But yeah, good question. I got one for you. This must be a buddy of yours, Hammerhead 406. Digi, when we gonna go fishing? And how did you get the name Digi?
I bet that's Punchy. That's one of Guy's friends. Oh yeah, that's Punchy. I'm zooming in on his profile photo there. Yeah, so down here we do a lot of fly fishing, Guy and myself, and he's got his little ring of buddies. And yeah, we hit the rivers pretty hard. It's been a while, I think, Punchy, since we fished. We need to get back out there. But yeah, Guy calls me Digi Deals, or I think that's probably the biggest one, is Digi Deals. So Digiscope, that's what the Digi part comes from. I love Digiscope, and I love videoing everything that I possibly can on my phone. So I'm like high on the Digiscope all the time. I have been for 10 years. And then the deals part is I'm always looking for a deal, and I won't buy anything unless it's a deal. So it's kind of a joke. It's just kind of a nickname that stuck with me. So yeah, like Guy and Ike, they'll call me Digi or Digi Deals or whatever.
Yeah, it's so funny. Guy is so good with those nicknames. So yeah, he calls you Digi. And I heard the story just a little bit different, that they're always waiting on you because you're trying to get Digiscope footage, and like almost driving them nuts to a point when they want to go make a play at a bull. But yeah, no, man, that's great. Yeah. Guy calls me Brain because everybody will misspell my name, Brain, or maybe there's more to it, like more of an inside joke. But yeah, that's he's pretty good with those nicknames.
Yeah. No, he's the magician for sure.
Yeah, I actually got out fishing here. Like, I finished that last tag, and I have a little bit before my next tag. I never get out fishing in the fall, and so I actually went out last weekend, and yeah, it was really good. It was really fun. The crowds were off, and big fish were eaten, and so yeah, had a good time. Just because I never get to fish in the fall, so it was pretty fun to get out for a November day.
Heck yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The off season. I wish I had more time to fish in October too, but it's just not. It's tough these days.
Yep.
All right, let's do this other one here. I'm going to read this one to you, Brian, and we're going to just go right back up to the top. This Ryland_Pratt, 4th season Colorado elk hunting for bulls. What's the strategy for big bulls or any bull?
Oh man. Yeah, I learned a lot in the late season post rut hunting bulls. It actually taught me a lot hunting with a rifle here in Montana. Our season takes place in October and then November all the way to Thanksgiving. So, that's where this 4th season Colorado will take place, is in November. And these bulls, it's one of the tougher times a year to hunt these bulls. So they're going to start batching up. You can still catch a bull with the cows, but for the most part, the bulls are running solo. They're running with bachelor herds or other bulls, and they're just finding these pockets that are like isolated pockets. They really tighten up their program, and a lot of times they're feeding at night. Like, I've chased bulls that don't show themselves for 7 days because they're just feeding the night. Now, weather's going to be key. When you get the snow and the cold, forces them to be out in the mornings or in the evenings, or out longer during daylight hours. It forces them to move down in elevation and show themselves. So hunting weather is going to be key. And then also, like for me, that time of year, it's master vantage points. Like I'll hike 5 miles in a different direction to find a master vantage point to sit up there and to start a fire and to really glass around and be able to catch these bulls. Another thing is after fresh snow to be glassing for tracks, where you see the tracks, the elk aren't too far behind. So sometimes you can locate them that way. But it is a tough time of the year, but it's a really fun time of the year as well to chase these bulls. So, man, it's just getting back to these far off pockets. They're not going to be in the easy spots, and they're going to be in slides and chutes and smaller openings versus like a great big south facer. So that's been my experience hunting bulls in that late season.
Yep. No, that's good. If I could add one thing, I would just say, late season, hopefully you have some snow on the ground. If you're trying to just locate bulls, get on a master vantage and be able to run that spotter up to 4 miles out. That early morning sun right at your back will really make a bull pop. So if you're in a new area where you really want to just find elk to start out with, get that master vantage, use the snow to really help those elk pop out at you in morning and evening light. And that's a good way to locate them. That snow can really help make them pop. Elk are easy to see, I feel like, in general, especially compared to a deer. They really pop out. But yeah, master vantage points.
Yep.
Okay. Ooh, this is kind of my favorite. Well, it's not my favorite, but this is a good question. And there's a couple questions about this. C_debt21. What's your best advice for trying to earn an opportunity to film a hunt? What do you look for, Brian, when you're looking for a camera guy? I have a good answer to this too, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. This is I just had Cody on the podcast, man. He's a great go-getter. He's killed a couple bulls over 350 the last couple years. And so, yeah, he's really well-spoken. And so you can listen to the E podcast. I think it was last week it came out. He was on the podcast. So, yeah, just a great young go-getter. Yeah, for a cameraman, yeah, I'm looking for a great attitude. I feel like as hard as we go, anybody can do this with the right attitude. And so I think the right attitude, being fit, I think also like, just reaching out and letting some of these guys know that you're willing to do it. And a lot of this is just like, you're investing in yourself as well. It's just like looking for an opportunity to get started. And also there are so many like a lot of these guys that we're hiring, they've done film jobs before, or they run their own YouTube, and you can look at their work through editing or through their own filming, and you're like, oh, this guy's putting out pretty good stuff. Like, I'd like to give him a try. But I think it's like a good attitude, a go-getter, and then just trying to reach out and look for some of these opportunities, because they're definitely out there. And it's tough for us because we do get so many guys that are go-getters that want to go. But I think just really working at your craft, photography and videography, and having something to show guys and send them a quick edit and go, hey, here's a 1-minute clip that I put together of me and my buddies hunting. I really like an opportunity to go film for you. Like what do you say for that, Dan? Or what are you looking for?
Yeah, no, that's a lot of it. What I would add to that is, and I did this last spring. I put out an ad on social media, just looking for a new camera guy, and man, got like 90 guys that submitted their, applications, if you will. But not only that, and I look for, and there's nothing personal, but if you have a family, I'm probably gonna bypass you just because I know that can cause logistics. I've been there, and I'm a family man, and I know how hard it is to spend all these days in the field and have a family, especially if you have young kids. So I'll bypass you on that. Sorry, no offense. It just makes things easier. I like it. Uh, the kids, I like kids that are a little bit younger, that maybe aren't set in their ways. They're not set in their ways of hunting. Maybe they don't have a ton of experience. But the reason for that is I can mold them how I need them to be to hunt with me. And if you're 35, 40 years old and you're stuck in your ways, which it might be fantastic, and it could work for sure, but I like to be able to mold these younger kids, these go-getters that maybe don't have as much of experience, just mold them how I want them to be so we can hunt the most efficient way possible. So that goes into play Yeah, just go getters, like you said. That's huge. Bug me a couple times, and you got 90 applicants. There's no way I'm gonna read all of those. So something's got to stand out. You got to bug me 3 or 4 times, let me know that you want it. That played a big part of it. Brett, our guy that I picked up this year, and he kind of fit the bill to this. He doesn't have a girlfriend. He's like, I was like, hey, you got a girlfriend? And he's like, no. And I was like, good, let's keep it that way. It's just less drama in the backcountry. All these days that you have in the field, it's less drama. He doesn't have to be in cell phone coverage all the time and check in. He's kind of, he's on his own. He's 23 years old. He has nobody to answer to. Those are the type of guys I'm looking for because it's just less drama. I mean, I've been doing this for so long. I just know what works out there, and I know the challenges otherwise.
Yeah, Brett was great, man. I used him for that early high country hunt. I sure put him through the ringer, through the test on that hunt. It was a really difficult one, and he did great. Just a great attitude, great go-getter. And then used a new cameraman that Lindsay recommended that's close to you. If you ever need another one, that Carter, man, he did an amazing job. Great attitude. I think he'll be great. I think Carter likes to hunt a little too much too, so that's another part of it. It's like these guys want to hunt for themselves, and we're hunting right in the heart of their season. And nothing against Carter. I think he's going to do an amazing job, and I think he'll come through. And he was good at checking in on the dates, and he did everything I could ask for in a cameraman. So I definitely think I'll use him again, and he'd be a great guy for you. And again, single, young, go-getter, doesn't have to answer, and also has the flexibility in his job to go film. I'd say the one thing is he loves to hunt himself, so it's going to be a balancing act of figuring out what he wants or what he wants to go for. But yeah, he did great as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. He's a good kid. He's worked in the office here a little bit, and we tried to get him to film some more hunts. And same thing. I mean, he's busy and he's running some construction stuff himself with his brother, and so good fill in for sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So, this is Jaden Bells. I've also had Jaden on the podcast. He is a go-getter for mule deer, for elk, just a great guy. So, do you hunt the terrain or hunt where the animals are? Example: thick country deer versus open country deer.
Well, I mean, I hunt where the animals are. I mean, that's the goal. I probably am not as picky. I mean, number one is hunt where the animals are. We did talk about this a little bit, like antelope hunting. Targets are plentiful, and maybe you can choose the terrain a little bit more. If a buck is out on the flat and I'm just hunting a buck, I may bypass them just because I can look at the terrain and I can see that stockability is probably not quite there. I'm going to go look for a new buck. For deer, like he's saying, there's pros and cons. I like open country. I like hunting the desert, and I like hunting the high country too. I like hunting the desert because you get those master vantages. You can see a lot more. There's a lot more to work with out there terrain wise in the desert in this open country than a guy would think. Once you start bow hunting, you really start to pick apart the topography and build cover and see cover that allows you to get close to a buck in some of the most wide open country. So I don't shy away from either, but I would say overall, I like hunting open country a little bit more just because I can see better. I can keep tabs of those bucks a little better, a little longer, and that gives me the power to make a more effective stock. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I definitely want to hunt where the animals are. And I will chase bulls in thicker cover if they're bugling or if I have a chance, but I'm just drawn to this more open terrain. So when I'm scouting, when I'm applying for units, when I'm looking at mountain ranges or areas that I'm going to hunt, I'm just more drawn to the open. And I believe that a big buck or a big bull can be grown anywhere, as these things are so adaptive that they get really good at growing old in open country, as much so as thick timbered country. But I'm definitely drawn to the more open country. And I'm not going to still hunt through thick timber to try to kill a buck. It's just not an effective method for me. It's just you're hunting at 100 yards at a time, and I can't see enough to find a big buck. So I'm definitely going to shy away from thicker cover, thicker timber, and I'm going to hunt these things more in open country. But that being said, if I do find a buck that's feeding in a slide and then disappearing in the timber, I'm going to come up with like a game plan to try to hunt that buck when he comes into that slide or maybe going into his bedroom. So I'm not going to shy away from it if I find one in the thick cover, but I'm definitely drawn to more open terrain, country that I can glass. And then, so that's the type of country that I'm going to end up in most of the time. And I'm going to avoid this thick cover or get frustrated in it or end up shying away from it, even if there are big bucks that live in it.
Yep. No, that's well said for sure. Let's keep going since we have a ton. This next one, Crowdy08. All I see is for non-residents to get a tag. Maybe he's alluding to, how for a non-resident to get a tag. I got another question about this a few weeks ago, and the question pertained to, okay, I have 8 points in Wyoming for elk. What do I do? So I'm just going to answer this somewhat generally, and you're going to get the idea. If you're trying to chase a tag or these limited entry units, I would shy away from that. From what I've seen over the last 5 years, especially, I see what it takes point wise to draw some of these limited entry tags. And in my opinion, you're going to be disappointed if you're saving up 13, 14 points to draw some of these elk tags. You're going to be disappointed. I know I would be. And it's just point creep. And it's something that's out of our control. There's more hunters now, there's more applicants now. And so my recommendation is apply and get a tag that doesn't take so much points, maybe 3, 4, 5 points. I think it takes 5 points to get a Wyoming general. You're much better off to get a tag that you can get your hands on and maybe hunt it twice in 10 years than hunt a tag once in 15 or 20 years. There's big bulls in every unit in the state. There's no tricks to that. There's going to be big bulls in about every unit. So I would say the more chance that you have to get out hunting is going to be more beneficial to harvesting a big bull. Now, if you don't really care to hunt out of state that much, maybe your personal goal is to do it once in your life or once in 20 years, then do your research and build points and get one of those upper echelon units. But be careful, because there's a lot of units out there that have point crept, and quite frankly, they're disappointing. So what do you think, Brian?
Yeah, you're spot on. I just haven't, like, 25 years of doing this. I just don't draw many premium tags. Like, my game is to get tags and get opportunity. And I really think it's about building your skill set to be able to find and harvest trophy critters in all these units. And almost every elk unit, well, every elk unit I've ever hunted is like general season or real easy to draw. And so just look for these opportunities out of state with good game populations and then tags. And there's places in every state where you can get in. Montana, you can draw every other year for a deer and elk. Wyoming, you mentioned that 5 points for the general elk. I mean, Idaho has general elk tags that you can draw every year, every other year. I mean, Nevada, people have a tough time hunting Nevada. I tend to hunt mule deer there every year because I choose the easier to draw units, and I rely upon my skill set as a hunter to be able to turn up good critters and harvest those. So yeah, I think it's more about your hunting skill set than it is the units that you draw. And just like Dan said, if you spent all this time, 15 years getting the points, and you finally draw the tag, but you don't have the skill set to turn up a big critter or to harvest a big critter, you're not going to get one there and going to be really disappointed. And so I think it's a mix and match. Like me, for these northern states, I'm looking for opportunity. The southern states, like New Mexico, is 24 hours away for me. I may go for a more premium tag down in some of those states that if I'm going to drive all the way down there, I want a good opportunity at a good bull. But I think it's just looking for these opportunities. There's lots of programs out there. Use our tag hub as well to help you find these hidden gems, and you can look through rifle statistics, harvest data, bow harvest data, amount of 4-point bucks. Like, these game agencies put out so much information, and so like that tag hub program for like $99 a year, you can go through every state and every unit to really suss out like where people are getting harvest from and be able to dial it in and be able to get tags every year out west.
Yep, well said. All right, moving on. Nolan James Henning. This is a great question because I've been pondering this as well over the course of the season, because I've used both. I'd like to leave the spotter behind and just bring 15 power binos. Any problem with that? What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, so me and my circle of friends have been running this or dealing with this same issue, and 15s are great. Like, there is no problem with it. Bringing 15s and tripoding them up is amazing, and you can see through both eyes, so you can glass and scan terrain better than squinting through one eye in the scope. I will say that I can see what I want as far as field judging and picking out distant animals about 90 to 95% of the time. There is this 5 to 10% of the time where a scope just reaches out with that 20 to 60 power where I can identify the mule deer buck. So 15s definitely work and it works well, but I would say you can see what you want 90 to 95% of the time, and there is going to be 5 to 10% of the time you wish you had a scope. So as long as you're good with that equation, I think you're good with 15 because 15s do glass better than a scope will.
Yeah, it's so much more comfortable. Just to add, if I'm hunting like a non-trophy species, 15s all day, javelina or maybe antelope. I do love antelope for or 15s for antelope hunting. If I'm really trophy hunting, or if I really want to pick apart a buck, or if I really want to get that digiscope footage, I like my spotter. And so any of these hunts where I'm serious about quality, or if it's mule deer or elk, I'm probably going to bring a spotter, but I try to bring 15s with me if I can for those maybe non trophy style hunts, just because it's so much more comfortable glassing with those 15s on a tripod.
Yeah, and I'll say too that if you're hunting with a buddy, it's kind of nice to have your buddy bring a scope and then you bring the 15s to have both. And then I will say too that elk are way easier to field judge than mule deer. So a lot of the elk hunts I can get away with the 15s and be able to field judge 95+% of the time to be able to tell how big that 6 point is, to where mule deer, it's probably more that 90% range where most of the time I can see the buck and see what he is, but a scope just allows me to get in and pick him apart and really make sure it's a buck I want to shoot. So yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's like personal preference, and also comes down to the country that you're hunting as well. How distant of terrain are you going to be glassing? So yeah, great question.
Yeah.
So this one comes from A Thomas 2114. Brian, want to do a spot and stalk Texas public land desert whitetail hunt in December. So yeah, that's probably to both of us. So Texas public land desert whitetail. I wonder if that would be Coues whitetail or just a standard whitetail. I guess Texas would be a standard whitetail, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Definitely always looking for late season hunts. I don't have. I think I maybe told you this, that I don't have a whitetail buck to my credit. So yeah, I've got a December hunt coming up, but yeah, definitely always looking for other opportunities. Gosh, it's a public land desert whitetail. That's really cool that A Thomas has a spot like that figured out in Texas, because there isn't much public there.
Yeah, that's very unique. That's cool.
Yep. So we already mentioned Carter, my cameraman that I used on this last hunt. So he's Wyoming Knot _ outdoors. Says, what is the primary way to determine what out of state areas to hunt?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where do you start? And I would say for me, the first thing, do I have a bit of intel? Do I have something? Have I talked to somebody in the past, or somebody that lives there, or somebody that's hunted a unit in the past, to have some sort of intel to start with? That's the first thing that I kind of factor in. And then I look at my statistics. I look at harvest success? I don't really care too much about 6 point harvest. I know Idaho does publish that stuff, which can be helpful. But I look at harvest success. For example, like on an archery only hunt, if it's 30% harvest success on bulls, that's like off the Richter, like really good bow hunting for elk. So if I have a bit of intel and I know harvest success is that high, then it's going to be great hunting. I can factor that in. I can factor in, like, if the average hunter is killing 30%, well, if it's 30% success, the average hunter is making that happen. That's very good hunting. And so that's usually all it takes for me. And then I'll look at the unit, Google Earth wise on X there at the aerials, and see kind of what type of habitat I'm working for or working with, how much public is there, what access is like. See, it's kind of a trickle down effect of kind of what I look for. How about you, Brian? I think that's probably how I get started.
Yeah. Always some intel helps. It's like just talking over with different guys or different buddies, and sometimes it's not like somebody tells you to go hunt there. Sometimes you just hear something about a unit, and I look at a lot of the historic data. So I look at Pope and Young and Boone and Crockett. So that's going to tell me where the big ones come from. Again, like you, I dive into the research of harvest statistics, and I'll even look at like rifle harvest statistics. There's some units where they take $1,200 out every single rifle season, where it's like, gosh, that's a good population there. And then I can look and say, oh, there's big ones there, and there's so much data to dive into. And then I want to fly over it with Google Earth, with OnX, and I want to look at these different places and make sure that the range or the type of country is going to fit my style of hunting. And so I just start to get an idea, and then e-scouting isn't an exact science, and so that's how I kind of pick my unit. But like the last state that I hunted, or like a Montana general season, you have all these different places you can go in the state. And so I just try to find like a place that suits me and come up with the plan and a backup plan, and dive into the research. And then I may make a scouting trip down there. I may look at the winter range to see what's down there. But it's a process learning each and every one of these states. And sometimes you go there and you strike out, and it's like, well, now I need to find a different unit. That's been the case for me in Utah. Like I hunted a unit, I've taken some bucks out of there, I've hunted multiple units, but it's just not quite the right fit. One unit's too close to Salt Lake. I see too many guys in there, and yet it has giant bucks and good harvest data, but it's not the experience that I'm looking for. I'd rather hunt some more distant wilderness that's away from these big epicenters of like people, where I'm going to get less hunting pressure. And so then the search continues. So like learning these states is more of like a 10-year or 15-year, maybe it's a couple year, but it's like this journey to keep gathering information in each and every one of these states. And so, Colorado, I've hunted 5 different units for mule deer. Utah, I've hunted 4 different units for mule deer. Now I finally found a place that I really like, that I want to continue to hunt. And so you just kind of like dial it in, you talk to guys. It's like this gathering of information. And then ultimately, when you're a public land hunter, you just got to try it out. You just got to commit to an area. You go there, you scout it, you hunt it, and then you make your assessment there if you want to hunt it again, or if you want to keep looking around. And, it's part of this public land hustle, is that not every spot is going to turn out to be a money spot. But it's like you continue to learn and dial it in, and then eventually you have spots in every state that you want to hunt.
Yep, that's spot on. Good stuff. Moving on, Ivory period outdoors. What is your favorite conservation organization or nonprofit, and why?
Yeah, she runs a great Instagram page as well. She does a good job putting herself out there. But yeah, I really like the bow hunters associations, as they really stick up for us bow hunters and us bow hunting season. So I'm always supporting each state's bow hunter association, the Montana Bow Hunters Association, the Wyoming Bow Hunters Association. Like, those are great organizations for me to put my money into, where I know a lot of my dollars are going to the right places. So those are definitely a couple of my favorite.
Yep, spot on for sure. I like nonprofits that go to bat for us, and especially the bigger ones like the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Like, they're actually doing things to give the public land guy more opportunity, like buying up these easements, buying these ranches, and making them available to the general public, like giving back to the people. That's huge for me right there as well. Western Bear Foundation, fighting to get grizzly bears delisted. Pro predator management, which is huge in this day and age, with California and now Colorado trying to get to the point to outlaw mountain lion hunting and ultimately all predators. That's how they truly think that it should be. Is humans don't have a say or a play in wildlife management, and it's completely wrong in my opinion. And predators need to be managed under the Western hunting and conservation model, like they're intended to, like any other big game species. So
Oh, the one I really like, Dan, that I forgot to mention is Hal. I've got
Yes.
involved with Hal here lately, and I've had them on the podcast, and then I try to share their stuff as much as I can. They're really sticking up for us Western hunters in all these states, and they're at the forefront of all this legislation. And they have a program on there to send letters to congressmen and they're not like a robo. Like each letter, they have a multiple different letters that'll go out, and they're really on the forefront of this fight for us hunters in every state. So they're like, I've seen stuff come out. Colorado, I just shared something from them in Colorado. This is a new organization that I've got involved with that I'm really impressed, where our dollars are really going to fight, this in this political system and in this legislation to help fight for our rights as hunters. So they're doing a great job.
Yep, that's a great one to mention for sure. Moving on here, we still have a lot of questions left. We're going to try to blow through some of these. Dale.listful. Elk are narrowed to September 20th for actual mating. What is the date for muleys? Pre-rut mating to post-rut. Okay.
Yep. So I've heard this. I heard this from a biologist listening in, where they really narrowed down the elk rut, and that they rut like the 20th, like he's talking about, is like this main rut, and that goes for the southern states, that goes for the northern states. Muleys are a touch different. Like the farther north you go, the earlier they rut, and then down in Arizona and New Mexico, they don't rut until January. So it's really tough to put our finger on. But I would say the muley rut for me, like in these northern states, so that's going to be most of the states I hunt, like at least most of the states that I hunt the rut. So the Montana, the Idaho, the Wyoming, down into even Nevada and Utah. I don't hunt the rut much in Colorado, but I think it's fairly similar in Colorado as well, as I usually hunt the early season in Colorado. But for me, it seems like the rut starts around that November 1st to November 5th. And it's not like you're going to see one buck rutting one group of does for every 6 group of does you see. So it's just getting started in those dates. And then really the dates I like to hit where it really starts to turn on here in these Western states are like the 5th through the 12th is like the first like real good rut action. As far as the peak of the rut, I'd say the peak of the rut for these northern states that I'm hunting is going to be around the 15th, 16th, but then they'll continue to rut all the way through the end of November. And then I've hunted the rut even in December in these northern states. It begins to tail off a bit, but I think the muley rut is more drawn out and changes to the hemisphere that you're hunting, but also it just seems to last longer. Like I've hunted them in these northern states all the way into December 15th, and there's still bucks rutting. Like they continue to rut. Like it's a really long and drawn out rut. But those are some of the dates that I've been able to dial in with my hunting.
Yeah, I think that's spot on for sure. Missions Hawaii, the legend over there. Where is your dream elk hunt, guys? And Dan, it can't be Wyoming wilderness. What's yours, Brian?
Well, this is my buddy Sean in Hawaii. And I will say my buddy Sean just ended up with this super premium tag in Utah. So they just called him, and there's one non-resident tag for this place. And they called him and said, somebody turned in their tag. You're next in line. The hunt starts in 2 weeks. So he's dropped everything. He's canceled our muley hunt, and now he's going hunting elk in Utah in one of these premium units. So I would say my dream tag is that one you ended up with, Sean. But no, if I'm going to answer it, like I have never drawn a premium elk tag anywhere. Like all mine are general, easy to draw tags. So once in my life, I would love to hunt one of these premium units and really set my sights high for a giant bull. So I don't know where that dream place is. It's like whatever Western state's going to give it to me. But yeah, like I'd love to hunt Arizona once in my life. I'd love to hunt some of these Utah limited entry. I'd love to hunt some of like the wilderness, because he said I could. He just said you couldn't say the Wyoming wilderness, but I can. I'd love to hunt the Wyoming wilderness for some of those giants. So that's kind of the top of my dream list, but I don't have like a specific unit, I guess.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Like you said, Arizona's up there with me just to draw one of those premium units once in my life. And then I'll probably never do it, but I want to go to Mongolia and hunt them. They call them morals over there. And it's different. It's about the adventure. It's about those little horses they ride over there, the beautiful country. Pedro, actually, he just put out a video hunting those elk over there in Mongolia. And so that would be just an incredible adventure. Would I actually ever go pay to do that? Probably not, because we have so many elk over here. But as if I was going to romanticize about elk hunting, that's probably where it would be, is just the ultimate adventure in such a foreign place for the same animals that I love to hunt uh, in North America. So that's probably what I'd go with.
That's really cool. I saw that video as well. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
super cool. And I do have Sean coming up on a podcast here in the next week or two where he talks about some of his bow hunting elk this year. This is before he knew he drew that tag, so we won't cover that tag. I'll have to get him back on. But Sean's a great bow hunter and great guy.
Yeah, he's a killer. All right. David Shadaker. No question. Love the podcast, guys. True passion shows through. We appreciate that one.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, Crowdy 08. With last year's winter all over the western states, is it a good idea to hold off for a few years? Yeah, that's regional wise. There was some catastrophic winter kill that happened. I will jump in and say, like, G&H in Wyoming reports from check stations during hunting season, they are down 80%. Harvest is down 80%. That's what they kind of predicted, numbers down overall 80%. Wyoming is in a tough place. There's always these spotty exceptions where you can still find a good buck. But as a whole, as a non-resident, I would say to wait. It's probably going to be a generation of deer before they really come back, if we get some decent winters coming up. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I think it's there's definitely regions that you want to avoid and give some time, like you mentioned G&H. I'm going down to check out another spot this month that's down where I'm gonna check in and see how they wintered and see how the numbers are. And maybe I'll find that their numbers are way down and it's not worth applying there. But I think you can still always find places to apply. So where the opportunities are less in these, in like Wyoming, G&H, maybe Idaho, maybe Utah, and some of those places. I've heard some dismal things like about some of those areas, but maybe southern Utah is where you apply, because the deer numbers now have the moisture and they're doing really good. Nevada, where they have good winter range and they have good moisture, like those will be the opportunities that you look for. And even in these states like Wyoming, where G&H has gone down, you can go to the eastern side of the state and it's doing a lot better, and there's still mule deer around. So I think there's still opportunities out there. I think you just have to dive into it a little bit and still look for opportunities to go hunt. Like Montana, we got the same winter as Wyoming, but we just have like better lower winter range. So our mule deer fared better than in Wyoming. So it's just like looking into these states and still finding good places to hunt with good sustainable populations, and then avoiding these places that had the really bad winter, and letting them come back a little bit. But G&H are such a mega place to hunt mule deer that it won't take long, as long as we get, don't have another bad winter, another couple, and it will start to recover pretty quick. And you could be at the forefront of the good hunting by pulling the trigger on that a bit early too, So I think there's opportunities out there.
Definitely good stuff. Can I jump into my DMs, Brian? There's three guys that asked kind of the same question, and I know you're going to have some excellent insight on this. From Kyle 76 Walker, from Main Beam Addiction, Diego, we've met him, and then WV Good Guy, Good Old Forest, Andrew Ernest. They all kind of asked about target panic. Diego was having some issues. His pin, it was just locked in below the bullseye, and he couldn't get it up above the bullseye. But kind of that target panic issue that it seems like we've all kind of been there. What's your advice for that, Brian, to overcome some of that target panic?
Yeah, I had that same thing where my pin would settle low, and I could hold it as still as I wanted to low and had to fight it back up. So you're right, Dan. It is a form of target panic. And so there's shooting drills you can do by blind bailing, by shooting. The biggest thing is to not choose now on your trigger. It's to be able to squeeze on your trigger until the shot breaks and be able to hold that aim. And so what I had to do is I had to switch to start using a back tension release. A back tension release release allowed me to aim again, and then I could pull until the shot breaks and let it break, and then able to transition that into hinge shooting, into thumb shooting, and even into trigger shooting. I can shoot a trigger in a controlled shot where I can squeeze, and let that pin aim. So to correct that, takes you almost got to dedicate yourself to it, realize you have a problem, and dive into it. So the blind bailing, like there's some quick fixes with some aiming drills where you can pull back and you're not going to shoot, but then you aim at the center of the target and you just let that aim. It seems like this is like more like a band-aid or a quick fix, and some people like Dan is able to battle through. Like he doesn't have target panic and can put his pin right where he wants it and can control shoot on the bullseye when he shoots, and it's amazing to see. But a lot of us, like me, I developed that target panic where my pin held low and I had to start over with my shooting process. And I think a lot of that comes from Dan doesn't force his shot now. Like he's learned how to control that trigger a little bit better so it doesn't creep in on him as bad, where it crept in on me. I held my pin low. I had to start over, start with a back tension release, start blind bailing a bunch, like just shooting in, not aiming, then incorporate aiming, and then just not making my shot go and waiting for my shot to break. You can correct it. Just make sure that you don't start cheating a hinge release, or you don't start cheating a thumb release, or otherwise you might develop a problem that's going to be a lot harder fix. And a great person to listen to about this controlled shooting is Joel Turner. You can listen to him. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast. He's a buddy of mine. Like I really like this guy. His son won the world indoor shooting through this controlled process, but he just describes the process really well. So to listen to him, and I also want to get him on my podcast here this year, but he's a great guy to listen to. But yeah, it's a form of target panic that you have to dive into, commit to, and correct now.
Yep. No, that's good stuff. Everybody kind of has their different path of what they go through. Before I got my LASIK surgery, I had a fair amount of astigmatism, and so I had a bunch of pin blur, and that kind of freaks you out a little bit. But I just didn't feel like I was precise, so I switched to a single pin slider. I felt like I was more precise, and then yeah, I guess for me, it was just getting comfortable with that pin blotting out the bullseye. And you can't see the bullseye when you're doing it right. It's blotting it out, but you have to be okay with that, because I think your brain wants to be able to see the bullseye and still make the shot where it needs to be. But with archery, how we do it, it's being okay with blotting out that bullseye with your pin. And what really did help me with that was those aiming drills, and doing it religiously, and just being okay with, and just practice aiming, practice blotting out that target or that bullseye, and being okay with it. And the result that I've seen with that, and it's actually, I didn't think about it too much until this last year, but what it has done for me, those aiming drills and just being okay with putting my pin exactly where it needs to be, it helps me acquire my target quicker now. And so what I would do is I'd be okay with blotting out the bullseye, and then just aim for another 2 or 3 seconds. Just get comfortable with aiming, practice aiming. And before I knew it, as I began to do that religiously during practice in hunting scenarios, and you can see this in my 2021 backcountry elk hunt, and it's almost to a fault, but now it just seems like with that practice, I can draw back and that pin goes exactly where it needs to be. As long as my head's clear and I see my shot, I see that little window that I need, my pin will go exactly to where it needs to be and to where to shoot. And I can pull it off pretty quick. I can shoot within like 2 seconds, draw back, anchor, pin, fire if I have to. And so what that has led me to be able to do is to do that comfortably. I wouldn't recommend like doing that and shooting quickly when you're starting out, or maybe if you're, you don't have a ton of experience bow hunting. You need to aim, and you need to get comfortable with aiming and not rushing something. But I believe with that target, that those aiming drills and just aiming at that target and being comfortable with aiming, it's helped me acquire and pick that spot a lot faster in hunting situations.
Yeah, that's great tips, Dan. So spot on, man. That's a big part of my shooting process is like I tell myself, put the pin where it needs to be, and my pin goes right to that animal instead of hovering low or hovering high or dinking around. Like just putting that pin where it needs to go. And then along with that is being okay with the movement, is like putting it where it needs
Yeah.
to go, and my pin's gonna move around a bit, but I continue to pull through my shot and that arrow ends up in the middle. But yeah, the really good tips. It's like one of the biggest challenges for us bow hunters. And target panic doesn't come out like when you first start shooting. When you first start shooting, your pin goes and they execute. It's almost a problem that comes after years of hunting or after years of shooting and then starts to rear its ugly head. So yeah, it's a bit of a mind trip to get through, but I'd say if you're going through it, if you really want to correct it, it's like diving into that, those tips and like really committing to the process.
Yep. Well said.
Yep.
Well said. All right, Brian, what do you got in your DMs there? I got a couple more, but you go first.
Okay, I've got one from Raphael O'Connor, and he says, late bow season, Western Washington blacktail starts November 20th. Can you be vocal or too late? Can you rattle or too late? Spot and stock, tree stand, pour it on me if you have any secrets. So yeah, man, I grew up in Western Washington hunting blacktails, but I wasn't as proficient as a blacktail hunter as I am nowadays. So I've gone back there a time or two and hunted blacktails. They're really difficult in that thick country. So I think all the things he's saying, are worth a try. And November 20th isn't too late for the rut. They still will be rutting. So yeah, I mean, I think vocalizations, rattling. I'm more of a spot and stock guy. I think if you found like a really good area where you had the trails to tree stand and be low impact is good in that thick cover. And spot and stalking is difficult in that terrain as you have to move so slow. It's a bit like hunting axis deer in Hawaii, Dan, when we get in that thick timber where you just really have to slow down and move and glass that timber in front of you, and try to pick out that animal before he sees you. But it's definitely no easy feat there in Washington. It's paying attention to the sign, moving really slow. And I think any of those tactics that he mentioned can work. It's like a chess game over there. So it's like trying to dial it in and figure out what's going to work best for you. You got any insight in that, Dan, hunting thick timber?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've never hunted blacktail, but yeah, hunting thick timber, I think you're spot on with that.
Glass clear cuts, alder slides. That seems to be a way to pick out deer from a little bit further distance. Try to watch your noise as you're moving through. I kind of spot and stalk them when I'm back there, and that's like kind of the method I use, but it's just dang difficult. A lot of those bucks are nocturnal. I think paying attention to the tracks and finding good areas where there's deer around is going to be a huge part of that equation.
I see a lot of guys using tree stands too and being successful with it. I mean, if you can stomach sitting that much, but if you believe in the process and you believe you're in a good spot, then yeah, I think that can definitely pay off too. It seems like
100%. Yep.
Yeah. This is this will be a fun one. Hunt Life, Steve Colley, he's a fallow slayer in Australia. I was talking about Matthew's bow on that video yesterday. He said, "Is Hoyt better though?" That was his question, and he's joking, of course. But what's your take on that, Brian? I mean, are Matthews the best?
Yeah, I mean, I think all these new bows nowadays are incredible technology, and you can command them and have them shoot really well. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think Hoyt and Matthews are top of the heap. I mean, some guys are partial to a Bowtech or a PSE as well. I really like those top name brands. I will say, my buddy Dylan switched to a Hoyt last season after shooting Matthews, and he shot it really well. And I just talked to him the other day, and he's undecided which bow he's going to go with, and he pulled out his old Matthews, and it shot really well for him. I will say I've shot next to him, and that Matthews was a lot quieter than that Hoyt from last year. Now, so I have seen that. So that alone is like, oh man, I really want my bow to be quiet. So I'm going to stick with the Matthews. But I think both of these bow manufacturers are producing top end bows. And I think it's just how it fits you or which one you like more. I like to shoot both of the, I like to shoot all bows and see how they fit. And, I have fallen in love with these Matthews, and I truly believe that they are building the best bows as they hold their tune. And so I'm a huge fan of these Matthews nowadays, and I'd be hard pressed to switch just because I've built such a relationship with them and can trust them. But, that's my 2 cents for what it's worth. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. It's like, are you a Ford or are you a Chevy guy? Is kind of what it's like these days with the bows. They're all good. Not that Chevys are actually good, but
Well, I'm a Toyota guy, so
there you go.
I don't know
You're
where
good.
I
Yeah.
lay, but yeah, no, I get your
Yeah.
sentiment.
But no, I mean, yeah, you got to nitpick. I will say, I test all the bows I've hunted with Hoyts back in the day. I test them all now. I know for a fact that Matthews are the most efficient. Same spec, like if you have all these bows and line them up, same specs. That Matthews, they shoot faster. They're the most efficient cams because of their mod system. Now, what that means is for every half-inch draw length, you have to go swap out mods, and that's kind of a pain. Whereas at these other bow companies, they have like the sliding of the rotating modules. It's very easy to change your draw length, but you lose efficiency. You lose cam efficiency. So if I'm shooting an arrow and I have all these bows that are in the same class, I'm not talking about like taking another bow from another company that's, a 5 3/4 inch brace height, a really aggressive cam. That's kind of like apples to oranges. But if I take all these bows that are in the same class, the same type of cam, maybe the same ATA, and shoot them side by side, the Matthews is always the fastest. It's always the most efficient. So I know that's a fact. There's no arguing with that. But I do know that Hoyt makes the best carbon bow. That's my opinion. And some guys have at other bow companies have also said that about Hoyt's carbon bows. I think if you're wanting to buy a carbon bow, I would look at Hoyt. So yeah, other than that, there's a lot of feel to it that you just need to decide what feels the best to you. But yeah, the pros and cons to each. But yeah, it's hard to beat a Matthews. I got to tell you about the new one after this podcast too, Brian, because it's freaking. You're not going to believe it.
Oh, I can't wait, man. I talked
Yeah.
to Brandon today and he's shipping it. I've been looking at my old address to make sure it didn't show up there. I'm so excited to see this thing. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to that.
Yep. Good stuff. All right. You got anything else? We're
I
running.
think, yeah, we're running low. We're running out of time here. I think I'm good. I think we covered the majority of it. I've got another one here, but I'll just answer that one directly. And man, what a fun question and answer show, Dan. I don't might have to do this every handful of episodes because I really enjoyed it. Like how we were able to run the gamut of different questions and different subject matter and jump through these things. So man, I really enjoyed it.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to end it with this last one. I don't think we have to really address anything, but Tanner_Bo, he said, do you think big old bulls, meaning bull elk, F up a pot of chili? My coworker thinks so, but he's a dink slayer. That's pretty funny. I will say I've had some old mature bull elk, and they're actually pretty good eating. Like from my experience, you can always have a bad one in there. I think that goes for deer too, but that's a funny one. Good stuff.
Yeah, 25 elk that I've shot. I had one older bull that was aged at over 15 years old in the wild. And I will say that one was pretty tough where I had to get it all made into bird. But for the most part, 25 elk that I've harvested, every one of those but one has been exceptional. And I tend to seek out those older age class bulls. And like I say, they're always good meat for me.
Yep, 100%.
Yep. Good. Right on. Let's wrap it up, Dan. I'll
Okay.
catch up with you soon. Great episode.
Sounds good. Likewise, buddy.